If you're a Cleveland Browns fan looking for a break from the emotional roller coaster that is the price we pay from loving then hating our Browns, then a big welcome to Cleveland Browns Anonymous, a group therapy podcast to help you survive the season. So let's start our meeting.
Hi, everybody. This is Mike Riley with my colleague Brooke in the room. How you doing, Brooke, on this gray Monday?
Still recovering from that game yesterday.
Well, this is why we have the Cleveland Browns Anonymous for days like this. It's time for our emergency meeting post-game. So let's start out with you. I'm Brooke. I'm a recovering Browns fan, right? So on and so forth.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm recovering, but that was just an unacceptable game.
Well, that's one of the great understatements of the year, unacceptable. But there's just so many little balls floating in the air. Let me see if I can just tick them off. We were talking earlier today. The first thing is fingernails on a chalkboard. You know, it's one thing to have a loss. It's another thing to hear our coach, Kevin Stefanski, don't go down cliche avenue with just nothing but conventional wisdom and just more of the same. I just feel like we're at the point where we were last year with Baker playing in the Detroit game, where I think for the third or fourth game, I have to listen to Kevin talk about how this falls on him. He's the coach. He's got to make it better. Unfortunately, I'm getting the same feeling processing the utter incompetence of the Joe Woods defense. And it looks like we've got more to come, more broken coverages, more incompetence, more dysfunction. Would you concur on that?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell because it was only the second game. I would bet if I had $230 million fully guaranteed that Jimmy Haslam's not going to let this coaching staff slide when his 230 fully guaranteed quarterback comes back. I like Kevin. He seems like a really nice guy. He's the best coach I've seen on the Browns since I've been alive. But I think he's going through some growing pains here.
Well, you know what? This is year 3, and the growing pains he's going through are the same as it was last year. Joe Woods was questionable at best as a defensive coordinator. There's a lot of people that wanted to hang him, not just after the Chargers game, but after the Cardinals game, after the Pittsburgh game, where these teams, when it came down to it, they just marched down the field and scored, and we just couldn't stop them. I mean, the defense is with the exception of maybe the Bengals game or the Vikings game.
You know what the worst part about that is you ticked off Chargers, Cardinals last year. Chargers, Justin Herbert, top 5 quarterback. Kyler Murray's probably a top 10, top 15 quarterback. And you lost to Joe frickin' Flacco yesterday. The statue.
Joe Flacco, yeah, exactly. But let's stay on Kevin Stefanski, and then we'll do a deep dive on Joe Flacco. Being a head coach, like being a defensive coordinator, you get promoted to either your level of incompetency, a la Peter Principle, or you get promoted and you learn to evolve. Kevin Stefanski should have benched Baker last year. Kevin Stefanski should have stepped in and said something to Joe Woods. Now, we'll never know what happened because he's pretty tight-lipped and, he's doing his variation of the Bill Belichick, we're on to Cincinnati routine. But we clearly have a defensive coordinator who is taken on water, who's overwhelmed, who just does not seem to know what he's doing when his own players are confused on the field. And we're talking about year 2 for John Johnson. and Greg Newsome and Denzel. The only rookie there is Emerson. But you got JOK. You've got how many all pros do you have on that team, on that side of the field? And they just look confused. It goes to
you have two. You have two all pros. That's it.
No, you got three. John Johnson was an all pro, and he seemed to regress he was an all pro safety. He was one of the best safeties. He was an Ed Reed type safety for the Rams. That's why they signed him. And he seemed to have regressed in the Joe Woods defense. But what is frustrating is if Kevin Stefanski is going to coddle this guy, then there's no hope for the Browns this season. We're just going to be living with a stacked defense that Andrew Berry and his crew put together. Top to bottom, talented defense that is working under the yoke of an incompetent defensive coordinator. And it's this right now, when the shit went down yesterday, we've heard from Stefanski saying this is a we effort. We win as a team, we lose as a team, which is total bullshit. Which, if everybody's responsible, nobody's responsible. We've heard from John Johnson, Greg Newsome, and Myles Garrett. We haven't heard from Joe Woods. If I was the head coach, I'd have Joe Woods up there taking questions from the press conference. We have John Johnson talking about we have to have a team meeting. This is the coach, the defensive coordinator. Where is he? Get him out there with the Klieg lights burning and have him tell us how he could give up a 70-yard touchdown pass where a guy not only got behind the defense, but there was nobody there. Your turn, Brooke.
Yeah, man, you're hot today.
Ugh. Yeah.
Well, it's not Stefanski's call to put his defensive coordinator out there. That might be a behind-the-scenes thing. So we have no idea. I mean, I watched the Stefanski post-game news conference yesterday. I had never seen him so mad, but he was very calm. But you could just tell he wanted to just unload on his coaches. And I did catch a quote because I didn't listen to his press conference that happened an hour ago, but he had said, this was a tweet, that the call on the 70-yard touchdown where the guy just walked in, he said he liked the call, but he didn't like the execution, which made me just really mad because it's not at the end of the day, it's the players have to execute, but the coaches have to teach this crap in their walkthroughs, in their practices, and in their preseason games. Look, that's why you have these preseason games, so you can work out the kinks on the defense, the hand gestures, what coverage are we in? I mean, that's why you sort this stuff out. And let's be real, the Browns should be 0-2. This team's a joke.
Oh, I don't agree with that. I think Jacoby Brissett. I mean, the one thing, unfortunately,
they won on that stupid penalty where he spiked it. If that call hadn't happened, Browns would be 0-2.
Okay, let's stay with the Jets game. Here's my take. Lost in all of this is the excellent play of Jacoby Brissett in the offense. I mean, it was night and day over the Panthers. They looked sharp. The plays were coming in on time. They were executing.
I'm not blaming Jacoby for week one. I thought he played well considering the circumstance. What I'm saying is the defense sucked in week 1. The defense sucked in week 2. And it was a lucky call that the Browns got in week 1 where Jacoby stepped back, faked the spike. If that call hadn't turned our way, Browns are 0-2.
Okay.
I'm not blaming Jacoby. I think so far he's a total pro. He's great at the short passes, seems like a good leader. You know, he moves around when he needs to. I think he's great. The defense sucks.
Yeah, and I think Stefanski, it's not a we thing that he said yesterday. It's not a we thing. The defense played terribly. The offense played well. We got to look we've been giving up too many blown coverages, guys wide open. This happened last year, and I'm going to have to step in and figure out what changes have to be made. That's what the fans want to hear. The fans don't want.
Stefanski is a defensive backs coach. That's right. How he started off.
Look at you. Either are part of the solution or you're part of the problem. Kevin Stefanski, if you're listening to this, unfortunately, you're the head coach. You can't hide behind the head coaches you were working for in Minnesota. Joe Woods, you can't hide behind the defensive coordinator, who ironically was the head coach of the Jets on Sunday, who seemed to have an understanding of the flaws in Joe Woods's defense, which is a mixture of zone, man-to-man, whatever. It was predictable. Flacco had all day back there for the most part, especially when Clowney left. Woods didn't seem to remember that if they're going to double and triple team Myles Garrett, meaning they're going to keep 6 guys in, why not send a mixture of blitzes to go after Joe the Statue Flacco? I mean, look at why die of 1,000 cuts as Flacco slices and dices the Browns? Why not play man press coverage and have JOK just blitz from different angles, especially around the Myles angle?
Hey, let's stop here. We got to pay some bills. 30 seconds, and we'll be back. Getting your house ready to sell, or you just need some basic repairs, and you can't get anybody to come out or even return your phone call. Then call Riley Painting and Contracting, your home mechanics, for all of your home repair needs, from electrical, plumbing, roof repairs, and getting your house ready to sell. 45 years in the business, a AAA on the Better Business Bureau, and we're on the preferred contractor list in Cleveland Heights and Shaker Heights. You can contact us by calling 216-371-8160 and leave a message, and guess what? We'll call you back.
I mean, you know, that's the thing about the Browns yesterday. They didn't seem to be at any point in time, they didn't seem in control of that game from the defensive side. It was pathetic. And it wasn't just a blown 70-yard pass. It was that blown coverage near the end of the first half. They had 8 guys back there, and one guy's wide open again. So I've got to ask Stefanski, I'm hoping he's listening to it. Do you know what is happening on the defensive side and what the holes are? And do you have the courage to make the changes needed?
Well, he clearly doesn't, because he called timeout when the Jets were at the goal line, and he saw the coverage, took a timeout, came back, and the dude just walked in wide open.
Yeah.
So he clearly wants to see the defense. I'll tell you one thing. They lose to Pittsburgh at home and the defense does this crap again. You think it's bad now. I mean, it's going to be they won't just be calling for Joe Woods to be fired. They'll be calling for the head coach too. And I'll tell you what, and I told you this earlier this morning, Jimmy Haslam hates losing to the Steelers, especially at home. So,
well, you got Mitch Trubisky. Talk about a journeyman. You got Mitch Trubisky. I've talked to my friend Bill today, who's a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. He is as depressed as we are.
Well, I'll tell you what. You know what I think it'll be so Cleveland if this happens. Mitch comes in. He's playing okay. Myles Garrett sacks him, walks off. He can't play anymore. And the new Steelers first-round pick quarterback, Kenny Pickett, comes in and leads a win. That happens.
Well, look, if the Browns' offense plays as well as they did against the Jets game and puts up points, and we lose because the defense once again is all confused, Joe Woods will be gone because you have a 10-day layoff and they're just going to promote somebody. And maybe Stefanski takes over the reins and calls the defensive signals, and he lets
Van Pelt
come in and call the offensive side.
Yeah.
Because Haslam's going to demand a head on the spike. But one thing that's got to stop is we've got to stop this Newt Rockne win one for the Gipper, rah-rah bullshit. When the players have once again, the players meeting, they all get together. And what? They're supposed to do the coaching instead of the defensive coordinator doing the coaching? Is that what this is about? Because all it does is put gas on the fire. You've got a coach there that's supposed to be coaching and organizing and making sure their players aren't confused. You see a Belichick defense walking around confused, like, what happened? You're supposed to get this guy? I mean, remember when Mac Jones took apart the Browns D in Boston? I mean, Joe Woods, people forget how many clunkers this defense has delivered when they go up against a good quarterback like a Tyler Murray. Or, they're going up against, maybe they got a top 5 rating. They're going up against one-legged Ben Roethlisberger or some third-string quarterback that they luck out and have, or maybe the weather's bad, which is an extra advantage. But they go on the road, they go, to LA or whatever. They get smoked, that defense. They're not stopping anybody. And yet, besides Jimmy Haslam, who's got to be asking some questions, it's Andrew Berry in the scouting department. How many good 5-chip, blue chip people do we have to get on the defense only to watch it suck like this? Which leads me to my last point of this podcast. Beware of the young genius assistant coaches. Joe Woods, defensive secondary coach under Robert Saleh. Who actually was the genius, Saleh or Joe Woods? I don't think it was Joe Woods. I think it was Saleh. Joe Woods just happened to be there. And I think for what you're seeing, look at Belichick now. Belichick and the Patriots. How many genius head coaches just happen to have Hall of Fame quarterbacks, starting with Paul Brown and Otto Graham, Bart Starr and Vince Lombardi? I mean, the list is endless. Ben Roethlisberger and Mike Tomlin, Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. I mean, really, who is actually the genius? Or you just happen to, get to all these Super Bowls because you have just a Hall of Fame quarterback. I mean, Brady goes to Tampa Bay and all of a sudden they're in the Super Bowl. So really, is it the coaching or is it the players? But the worst thing is if you have the players and you have an incompetent coach, an incompetent defensive coordinator, Joe Woods, who's really screwing up things and getting overcomplicated, calling the wrong defenses, putting the reins on when he should be. I mean, look at Joe Flacco, 1:30, no timeouts. You're begging for a sack, right? Isn't that time when you just blitz? You put the heat on? So yeah, I'm mad, and I'm mad. It's just going to get worse if I have to listen to more conventional thinking and more cliches. Your thoughts, Brooke?
Well, yeah, I don't think that's going to change with Stefanski. I mean, what's that famous quote you like to refer to from that movie Side Effects?
Yeah,
future behavior is
past behavior is the best predictor of future events.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's in Stefanski's wheelhouse to make a huge drastic change like that in these press conferences. I just don't think he's that type of guy. I think, I agree with you 100%. If it's as bad as it was if they lose to Pittsburgh on Thursday, and if Joe Woods isn't fired, it's going to get pretty nasty here in Cleveland. But I think that you got to let him go. Yeah, I agree. You let Stefanski run the defense. I know a lot of the players like the defensive line coach. Maybe you promote him.
Hey, exactly.
And you just, I mean, I don't think it's worse than what it's like now. And when Justin Herbert rolls in and 45-year-old Tom Brady and Joe Burrow, Lamar, when they roll in, I mean, we're going to get smoked.
Well, here's another thought. Stefanski called a brilliant game against the Jets. They were on their heels all game. I'm actually shocked that Jacoby threw that interception, but it was desperation time, and I think they were all kind of stunned. But up till that point, Stefanski called a brilliant game, and Jacoby executed it. Now, what you're seeing is what we didn't see with Baker, where Baker was not running the plays that Stefanski was calling. And that's what we said on our last podcast. OBJ was open. Players were open. Baker either didn't see him, didn't want to see him, wanted to do it himself. And you saw that. You saw that against the Giants, Carolina. He was mediocre at best. He was the Baker we've seen for years. Jacoby Brissett is another journeyman, but the difference is he's driving the Maserati. He's got the talent that Andrew Berry's assembled with Chubb and Hunt, and Stefanski is the perfect play caller for Jacoby. Jacoby is going to run that play, and most of the time that play is going to work. Though that the guy who's the number one person in that play is going to be open, and Brissett's going to hit him. And you saw that with Amari Cooper.
I don't know about you, but every time Jacoby had the ball, I had full confidence that they were going to score. Even when they had the 22 seconds left, I was like, you get them to the 50-yard line, the 45, send out Cade York.
Yeah.
I had full faith. And I think that interception was, hey, you know what? Shit happens. It's his first pick of the season. I was used to seeing one of those per, I don't know.
But see, the fact of the matter is, I don't know Joe Woods. I'm sure he's a nice guy. This is not personal. We like Stefanski, but this is business. And Joe Woods has to go like Baker had to go. You take Joe Woods out and may put that line coach in. You put that line coach in, and all of a sudden that talent is going to rise to the top. That's there. That is the problem. And Stefanski is going to have the balls to basically go to Haslam, go to Barry, and say he's got to get fired. They've got to fire the defensive coordinator. He is that incompetent. And it's not too early. People say, well, it's early in the season. No, it's not. We had a winnable game that Joe Woods lost. like you said, in side effects. Past behavior is the best predictor of future events. Joe Woods is the classic coordinator who's risen to his level of incompetency, who is wedded to his system. He says, well, we've reviewed this with the players. We go over this on film with the players. We show them how to do it, and it still breaks down. Don't blame the players, Joe. It's you. It's always the manager. It's not the players. You have all pro like John Johnson coming over, who's regressing, who's making dumb plays. That's the Joe Woods defense. He goes, that defense is going to get better, and the Browns will be able to compete with the Chargers and good teams because they'll have the kind of defense everybody has been expecting the last couple years. That's why we drafted all these defensive players. We just got a bad coach, like we had a bad quarterback. So Joe's got to go. Final thoughts, Brooke?
Yeah, I would be curious, and I'm not going to do this, but maybe I should. I'm really curious to know what player the past two games. I have a feeling it was Grant Delpit who blew that coverage on the 3 occasions. Because if it was Grant Delpit, let me ask one more thing. Starting. Why is a guy starting who is going to let this stuff happen?
Right.
I'd rather put someone in who's maybe a little less fast, but knows the playbook, who says, okay, we're doing this. All right, I can't let player X. I mean, it's like, so if Grant Delpit walks out there and he's starting, and we know that he's the one with, who blew the coverage, then nothing is going to change.
Well, they're not doing anything differently. They have the same defensive coordinator. They're not taking Delpit out. If he's a problem, if he was a problem in the Panthers game and he's blowing coverages, then you certainly take him out with 1:30 to go because he's not capable of following directions. Yeah. That's the job.
No, I can't trust him. him. And Grant, you're coming out.
And
so,
guess.
And John Johnson, you're going back. And JOK, we're scooting you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Instead, he's wedded to the system, enamored by the speed, the tackling ability, whatever. Look at your job, you get paid a lot of money. You're expected to have results. What we saw with that 70-yard, once again, another blown coverage. I don't want to be constantly repetitive, but let's go back to what Stefanski said in his first press conference. Tough, smart, accountable. Tough, smart, accountable. Nobody's accountable here. It's not a we thing, Kevin.
And they're not smart.
They're not smart if they're not making the changes. They're weak. They don't want to. They don't want to do that. And final note about the fans and Myles Garrett calling out the fans.
It's BS.
Really, F you, Myles.
Yeah,
I love Myles. Myles in the right. Really, you're making how much money? We just saw this disaster. What should come out of your mouth is an apology to the fans for the way the defense lost the game. That's what you say. That's what you say, Myles. And to all those lifer coaches, Stefanski, Joe Woods, who always stayed within the NFL bubble, moving from NFL team to NFL team. My final point is this. And pro football fans who do fantasy football, who listen to podcasts, maybe you're listening to ours. I know you're listening to other podcasts. They're reading ESPN. They're reading Bill Barnwell. They're following their team throughout the week. These fans are smart, and they know incompetency when they see it. And we've got it. And you coaches, instead of dismissing the fans, better listen, because they're like customers at your restaurant or customers in your business. They're giving you the feedback. You need to listen to them, because at the end of the day, they are a lot smarter than you are. You're actually not seeing the forest. You're too busy looking at the bark on the tree. And I think the fans' reaction has been, I don't trust Joe Woods. I don't trust him as the defensive coordinator. And it all came to a crash yesterday, Sunday, in that game. And those are my final thoughts. So, Brooke, we'll do a podcast after the Steelers, and we'll see. Fingers crossed. I'm hoping Stefanski's in that defensive room, looking over Woods' shoulder, breathing down his neck, being a Bill Parcells. In fact, we're going to finish with a clip from Bill Parcells and how he worked with Bill Belichick. And that's a coach to listen to. So, all right. I feel a little better. Brooke, hopefully you do too.
Yeah, a little bit.
And we'll
always help.
This was a good meeting. Everybody say your prayers, and we'll see you after the Pittsburgh game. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you for listening to the Cleveland Browns Anonymous podcast with Mike Riley. We have a lot more content on the way as we get this new podcast started. You can also check out some of our other podcasts, like the Cleveland Real Estate Investor Podcast, and other new ones that will start soon. On any platform that you find yourself listening to us on, feel free to leave us a like or a comment or follow us. It always helps.